Well, hello. Welcome to everybody. How are you doing? It's great to be here. It's another Wednesday night, so therefore it is another episode of Embrace Live. Okay, let me just there we go. I'm just got a little bit of an issue tonight with some technical things going on. All right. So I'm just going to put my name on here. Oh, he says, oh dear, it's going really well already, isn't it? Let me just do this. There we go. Thank you. All right, so welcome to an episode of Embrace Live. Sorry about that. I'm just having to do it like this. It's not working. Oh dear. Let's try this one. There we go. So my name's Dave Dixon. Not the best start. I apologise for that. But like we say, a bit of technical issues. Which is not bad because we're in episode, what are we up to? About 32 now. And I have to say, pretty much they've run pretty smoothly, apart from the odd moment. The comedy value, if you do want to go back to and have a look at some of the previous episodes, if you do want to go back, there's a wonderful one with Ben Jack, who's a really good friend of mine, and see if you can spot the point during the interview, like you say, the episode, where I managed to spill my glass of juice all over my computer, all over my desk, into my lap. You know, I thought it was pretty professional and actually just kind of pulled it off and styled it out without anybody knowing. So see if you can kind of hit that point. So it's great to be here. We like to say, my name's Dave Dixon. We Embrace Live came about during, like churches, many churches had to adapt quite a lot during lockdown, and we started doing a lot of our gatherings, our services online. And then, from that, actually, we found that we were getting lots of views from people, not just from Embrace Church, but from wider, actually, those who do the church thing and those actually who maybe didn't, who kind of stumbled across it as well. And so, we kind of thought, do you know what? We want to continue this. Now we can kind of get back together and gather. We wanted to continue this. And so it was birthed out of that. And it was really, Embrace Live as an opportunity just to kind of encourage us all throughout the week. Obviously Wednesday, hump day as they call it. Just to kind of give us a bit of midweek boost. And just to hear and celebrate, what God is doing across our region, across the UK, and indeed the world, all right? So it's a great opportunity to hear from people from the church. And I make a point of saying this every week. There's only one church, and that's the church with a capital C. That's God's church, his bride, as it's called in the Bible, and we want to celebrate that. And I say there's lots of different kind of flavours, and that suit many different kind of people. We're all different, which is great, because that's what makes the world sort of diverse and interesting and so on. And I'm really pleased that tonight we can actually get in touch with, and actually not just get in touch, actually they're going to feature on the show. Sorry, this technical thing has just kind of thrown me a little bit. All right, but I'm really pleased our guests tonight are Barry and Vicky Thompson from Darlington Baptist Church. And I'm really excited about that because good things are happening in Darlow, all right? And, I'm really pleased that Barry and Vicky, who take such an active role in bringing the church together in Darlow, they're able to kind of give a bit of their time, because I know that they're busy people. They're just on my second monitor over here, and I keep looking to see, that they're still there and they're smiling. They are, that's okay, that's reassuring, that's okay. Not like John Searle last week, who decided just to do a run, and I thought I was going to be doing the show by myself, but Barry and Vicky are there, they're waiting, they're happy, it's good. So just want to say, welcome to you. Thank you for joining in. Obviously, we always like to try and encourage people to catch this show live if they can. Why? Because then that makes it such a more interesting, interactive experience, really. So I can see that Liz has joined us. Hi, Liz. Hi, Alan. I'm just looking at my other monitor here. Hi, Sue and Bill have joined us. Brilliant. Hi, Mike. Hi, Tony. And please, help us out and share this show with your social channels, obviously your friends and family online. Just, help us spread the word about Embrace Live. Like I say, it's celebrating what God is doing and how he's moving around. Okay, I can see already that Alan's getting very excited from his comments. That obviously he's saying, hooray, it's Barry and Vicky. Barry and Vicky, just give me a nod if you're reading these comments as well. You can see them underneath. You should be able to see. Yeah, there you are. That's okay. I'm going to bring you on screen soon, so, you can obviously just get yourself kind of sorted and things like that. Listen, before we kind of get into things for tonight, really, and obviously the main focus is, obviously, we want to hear from Barry and Vicky rather than myself. But I just want to make another kind of plea, really. Can you do us a favour? Because I'd really like you to kind of, let me see if it's going to happen. Yes, maybe. There we go. All right, like I said, I'm going to do this a slightly different way tonight to overcome one of the technical hurdles. But you can see there that, I really want to encourage you to kind of subscribe to our YouTube channel. Yes, we go out live and we stream to Facebook, but we do, obviously post them on YouTube as well so people can catch up there. And not everybody likes to do the Facebook thing. I understand that. So it'd be great if you can kind of head across there and subscribe to our channel and do the usual thing, hit the notifications, like the video, all of that kind of thing so you can keep up to date. I tell you what, why don't we, apologies for keep looking to my left because I've got to make sure I've got the right scene selected using my mouse rather than my switcher, which is where the technical issues lie tonight. Let's go across to Barry and Vicky, just make sure that they are there and I'm not just making it up and they are ready. Let's just say a quick hello. Hello, how are you doing?
Hi, all right. Hi, Dave. Nice.
Hey.
Good, you are there. All right, that's all right. That's encouraging. All right, so thank you for giving up your time tonight. Obviously we know you're really busy people, and it's great, and so we're just really excited to kind of hear from you. I mean, I'm excited, but I mean, clearly Alan Fraser is at another level of excitement just to hear from your good selves tonight. Obviously, he's very excited. Certainly shouting there already, and I can see Mike Connolly has done very kindly posted the YouTube channel link as well. So Barry, Vicky, we're going to come back to you in a moment if that's all right. And like I say, I'll play a little bit of an intro video and then we'll come back and we'll hear from your good selves. Is all right? Are you smiling? You're happy? You're relaxed?
Good, we're good.
Good. Are you sure? Are you sure? Really? Good. All right then. Okay. So we'll come back to that, obviously, Barry and Vicky. That's the main focus tonight. Listen, as always, we want to make it interactive. So that's the whole point. We want to be able to, please feel free to, share your comments, ask questions as we hear about, Barry and Vicky's story and what they're involved with and how God is on the move in Darlington and what he's doing through them, through, Darlington Baptist Church and beyond, really. And that's what we want to celebrate. And that's what we want to, obviously just be encouraged by and hear, obviously, all about that as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play the leader's intro, and then hopefully we should get. I just need to just kind of move this a little bit. Oh, sorry, this is really clunky tonight. But here we go. Right, here we go. There we go. And we're back on screen. So start smiling again. There we go. Right. Brilliant. Thank you. So, Barry and Vicky, again, I just want to say thank you for being on tonight. It's great to kind of see you both and you're taking your time out to, obviously spend some time with us tonight and so on. So, as always, I just want to make it nice and relaxed. So, please feel free to breathe. You look a bit, kind of tense already. If you need to put your arm around each other, that's all right. That's allowed. Okay. And so on. So, obviously, we just want to kind of hear literally, about who you are, how... it'd be great to hear your story about how you, kind of meet Jesus yourself, kind of get to that point where you made a decision for yourself to commit your life to following Jesus. And therefore, what does that look like then? Obviously, you've got a great role, lots of responsibility over at Darlington Baptist Church, and we'd love to hear all about that and what's happening over there. And, obviously, you take a lead role as well within the One Voice Darlington, which is with the church getting together. Because, like I said, there's only one church, and it's great to gather in unity and all of that. So it'd be great to hear all of those kind of things. Is that all right? Does that sound like a plan?
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Super.
All right, so
Right.
I'm going to kind of just leave it to you to kind of decide who goes first and second. You can sort that out a little, those kind of things. I don't know, which one of you is the dominant one, whatever. But I'm sure there's a few kind of nudges going on, and or those kind of things. So, listen, why don't kind of one of you or both of you, however you want to do, just give us a bit of context about who you are. Then, what do you do for a day job? Obviously, we know, you're part of Darlington Baptist Church, but have you got family, where you're from, all of that kind of stuff. Really, give us a bit of context of who you are.
Well, thanks, Dave. Thanks for having us on. We really appreciate it. And thanks, Alan. We'll send you the £10 later for the comments. Thank you very much. Yeah, so I'm Barry. I was born and brought up in Darlington. Went to school here, went to college here, and then went to university just at Teesside because I got better A levels and I was expected to get. I was going to go and do performing arts, but then I got my A level at law, and I was like, that's a really good career. Why don't you go and do law? And so I did a law degree, and then finished a law degree, and then moved churches. I met Vicky, and we've got two boys called Josiah, who's 12, and Simeon, who is 9. I wasn't brought up in a Christian home. I found faith through going to a Christian camp when I was 17, 18, 19.
Right.
I went to the Christian camp every year, like as a youth camp at Cliff College, a Methodist college. At the end of the year, the youth group would go there. And I only went to the youth group because I love football, and there's football at the youth group. So that took me to the youth group. And then every year we would go away to a Christian camp. And I didn't go to any of the Christian stuff. I thought it was just for weirdos, essentially. Yeah. So I didn't go to any of the Christian stuff whatsoever. And then I heard the music, and the music drew me in. So I went in a couple of times, and then eventually I went into one of the services when I was 18, 19, and heard God say, the minister at the front said, why don't you ask God a question? And so I asked God if I could be in his family. And I felt him say, you've always been part of my family, you just needed to ask. So from that moment, then I committed my life to Jesus when I was kind of 18, 19. And then met Vicky when I was 20, 21.
Barry, let me interrupt you there. Not introduce you because I've done that already, but wow, you've just given us your life story in about 30 or so seconds, 1 minute. Wow, that's okay. Yeah. That's lots going on. There's lots I want to unpick on there. I mean, performing arts, really, obviously that's good. Obviously that's always a suitable role, but particularly if you're leading the church, you need a bit of performing arts about you, I think.
I'm a musician primarily. Is one of the things that I was brought up doing. So I play a few musical instruments, and ended up being a music teacher.
Wow!
After doing a law degree, as you do. So that music's been a big part of my life. So when that really drew me into the faith, and it's been something that's held me as worship music throughout my Christian faith.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. Vicky, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself? Because obviously Barry has just grabbed the mic already, and we want to obviously even it out. This is always a difficulty when you've got a couple on, isn't it? There we go.
It is. So I was born and brought up in a place called Oswaldtwistle, which is actually a real place that exists.
Never.
In Lancashire. My kids didn't even believe it the other day. I was telling them. So I was born and brought up in Oswaldtwistle. Wasn't brought up in a Christian home. And when I was at secondary school, some of my friends started going along to a Christian lunchtime club there.
All right. Yeah.
And when they started going, I kind of said to them, "Oh, you don't want to go there. These Christians are going to Bible bash you. They'll brainwash you. We're not going." So anyway, my friends went off. Winter hit. It got a bit wet and cold outside. I didn't fancy spending my lunch times outside.
Yeah.
Went along to this Christian club.
Clever.
I was the best heckler at the back of the room, and give these Christians some jip for a few weeks. But I remember there was a moment where they shared the gospel, and they kind of said, Jesus died because he loves you. And I remember thinking, probably for the first time, and just thinking, what if that is true? What if there is a God? What if Jesus did die for me? Then that means something. And I went home from school that night, and I remember going to my room, praying for the very first time ever in my life, and just saying, God, I don't know if you're there. I don't know if you're real, but if you are, I want to know that you are. I want to go to church, but there's no chance I'm going to go by myself. Yeah. So you get someone to meet me and I'll go to church. So I went along, didn't tell anybody I prayed, went along to the group the next week, and this one of the leaders came to chat to me. She must have been brave, and said, we have this church in the town. Listen, if you want to come, why don't I meet you in town and I'll go with you? And at that point, I was kind of like, oh, actually, I just prayed that and nobody knew I prayed that. And so I went along to church and just had this encounter with God at the age of 13 that then so utterly transformed me, transformed my life. My parents wondered what on earth had happened to me. I'd gone from being quite a moody, miserable teenager to all of a sudden going home, being very happy, full of joy. and went into school the next day. And I remember going into the classroom the next day and saying to my friends, "Oh, you'll never guess what? I went to church yesterday. I've met Jesus. He's changed my life." And over the course of the next few years, just saw a lot of friends come to faith. And the church youth group went from sort of 2 or 3 to quite a good sizable number. And so, so just my journey went on from there, really. By the time I was 18, I was going off to university, had a university place. God told me not to, called me to take a gap year with a Christian organisation. So I did that, did youth work, children's work for a year. At the end of that year, I was going off to university. God told me not to, and told me to give up my place at university and serve him instead. And so I did that for another year. And then at the end of that year, the church that I was working for offered me a full-time job doing schools work, youth and children's work.
Wow.
So I started there at 20. I think I was just 20 when I started that job. And then I've just sought to serve Christ through the church ever since.
Wow. Okay. So I think you two hold the record in our 32 episodes of Embrace Live of giving us your life history in the shortest amount of time, both of you. I mean, there's 2 of you together. I mean, this show is supposed to be an hour, but the way we're going, it's going to be like 20 minutes. All right, calm down, slow. All right, that's okay. So you're going to give me obviously I'm going to test myself here, trying to remember and taking everything that you were saying there, both of you as well. But already, like we encourage, the questions are taking place. And I'm going to put some of these on the screen so we can see that. First of all, obviously going back to Alan, the amazing Mr. Fraser. Okay, just a comment there about, that obviously what you're owing. He wants £10 each, by the way, just to kind of say that, that's the kind of guy Alan is, and those kind of things. But, in all seriousness, Alan's got a good question. There's a number of good questions coming in here, and we always good like to do this, Barry, you mentioned that obviously when you were talking, you said that, you were kind of went forward and you were invited to kind of ask God a question. So that, obviously you can see Alan's there kind of, how did you know that God was answering your question to him? How did you know for certain that it was God? You were chatting with God, he was answering.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I guess what I know now is it was a conviction of the Holy Spirit. What I knew at the time was I just heard something deep in my spirit that I couldn't expect. It was kind of a voice that I hadn't heard before, an internal voice that I hadn't heard before. Yeah. And so I guess what I know now is it was the power of the Holy Spirit speaking to me. But what I knew at the time was it was God. It was just, there was a distinct tone to the voice of authority, which I hadn't recognized or heard ever before. I now know, as I say, that's the voice of the Holy Spirit. But at the time, I just knew that God was speaking to me. Yeah. And it was time to give my life to him.
Amazing. So this was, you said it was at a youth camp. Was it at Cliff College, did you say?
Yeah.
So you've gone for the football and things like that. Now, clearly, we need to very quickly cover football because it's obviously a big part of your life and a big part of my life and so on. And quite clearly, if you kind of do the research like I have done, not stalking you, but on your social media, it's quite clear from your profile picture that you're a Darlow fan. You said that, haven't you? You're born and bred in Darlow. Okay. Let me at this point just kind of hold up. I don't know. It's probably not in focus, but. Let me just hold up my Spennymoor Town season ticket holder. And my question to you is, were you the one that was kicking the fence down on Boxing Day at the brewery field for Spenny? Was that you?
It wasn't me. It might be my dad.
Right, okay. All right, okay. So it just seems like every year we have a bit of damage, but there we go. That's just a bit of rivalry and a bit of silliness, and we don't condone it, and I'm sure it wasn't us. No. So I'm glad, and obviously you still play your football, don't you? Because I from every now and again I see from your socials you post a few pictures about the kind of brightest pair of football boots I've ever seen in my life.
That's right. So on a Monday night we play 7-a-side. Some of the fellas, not just church, but I use it really because I want people to know about Jesus. So at the end of the year, we do an awards night, and we get a Christian who's been a footballer to come and tell their story. So friends of mine are now people like Bruce Dyer, who was the first teenager to be transferred for £1 million in 1994 from Watford to Crystal Palace, and there's another guy called Trevor Benjamin who was at Leicester in the 1990s. Transferred for 1.3 million, played at England under 21s. Yeah. And so at the end of the year, they come and they'll tell their story. And we'll have an awards night, and everybody comes. And we've had Tough Talk came. Have you heard of Tough Talk, the weightlifters?
No, I haven't. No. Oh yes, I have. Sorry, yes, yeah.
So they came just in November, and they were able to share their story, and we gave an award to all of the fellas, and there was an award for the best player. But I count myself out of that because I don't want anyone to think I'm bribing myself or anything. So I count myself out of the best player.
That's very humble of you, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the Bible teaches about humility. So.
Yeah.
So I do that every Monday, play football, and it's in my diary as one of the major things that I do, because as Christians we can get so soaked up into the world of church when actually there's so many people who need to know the love of Jesus out there. So so I use that as a great witness.
Well, let me just totally agree with you, Barry, because I don't play anymore because I'm not up to it anymore. But I played a lot of football, and I ran a number of teams as part of the North East Christian Fellowship League on a Saturday morning, and actually spent time on the committee as well, and was chairman at one point as well. But and I would always say, particularly when I had that role and I was making my address to the committee members and everybody else on all managers, I said, look, I don't run my team for those fellas who know Jesus. I run it for the ones who don't, and that's amazing outreach. And again, I've got some great relationships that lasted still, and have done for many years, of lads who came and played, and they all knew that myself and the assistant manager and the captain and all that, we were all these churchy fellas, these Christian ones. A bit like you, Vicky, saying that you don't want to go to that team, they'll Bible bash you and all that. But actually, these lads who didn't know Jesus thought, do you know what, these boys are all right. They're actually quite normal, And there's times when obviously that was tested, as always, on the football pitch. I didn't always represent Jesus very well, and it was amazing how quickly the rest of the team would, particularly the non-Christian lads, would go, "You're supposed to be a Bible bash." All right, I apologise. I'm sorry. That kind of thing. So, absolutely, football is just a great tool, isn't it? Just to gather people. So it's great to hear that. Obviously that opportunity, that ministry that you're doing each week, which is brilliant. And thank you for doing that. One of the episodes previously on Embrace Live was with a guy called Maurice Hepworth, who was a professional player of Sunderland in the 70s. So it's well worth checking that out as well. And he may well be a guy. He's a great guy. He may well be a guy that if you haven't already, he might be a potential guest for you at the end of season presentation evening and stuff. So all right. So actually, let's just clarify this. Alan, he's going to be very vocal tonight. I can tell. He's very excited. But you just wanted to clarify that it was Vicky actually kicking the fence down at the Brewery Field at the Moors match, and clearly we've got Jill Jackson here just coming on, who's obviously Moors, but we'll try not to get into that, okay? And then, of course, other people are starting to jump in again and all of that. Right, okay. So, all right. So, obviously I'm trying to kind of pick up, obviously, what you were saying. Vicky, you talked about these Bible bashes, but you were very clever and you didn't want to spend outdoors at lunchtime. You kind of went in there and kind of eventually were encouraged after praying, okay, I want to go to church. Can somebody come with me kind of stuff? And then somebody, obviously came along and asked you that, which is brilliant, obviously. And, you ended up kind of meeting Jesus and then going into school the next day. That was a big, brave step, and declaring that to all of your kind of friends and stuff. But you did say that a number of them, eventually gave their life to Jesus as well, which is, amazing, which is brilliant. How did you feel about that? At the time, kind of, was it scary going into school then and taking that big step, or you were just kind of totally unashamed and just going for it?
Yeah, no, I've always been quite forward, really. So I didn't even question it, think about it. I didn't think you should be ashamed of it. It just never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just a natural thing to go and tell everyone what had happened and say, "Oh, why don't you join me?"
Yeah, absolutely. You're Hannah Jackson, who's a wonderful person as well, who's part of the Embrace Church, and I've known her actually since she was a bairn. But she said the same kind of thing. Is that she just is totally just unashamed. Not that we should be ashamed, of course not, but just boldness. And just goes and tells everybody. Which is great. It's fantastic. So again, I really love that. So, like I say, I'm just thinking that your sermons at Darlington Baptist Church must be the shortest ever. No wonder you must have loads of members if everybody wants these shortest sermons like you, because you went through such a lot so quickly. So, obviously, let's get to the importance of where did you meet then? Because Barry, I kind of interrupted you at that point when you were going to talk about you two and how did you meet? Because we've got a couple on. We wanted a bit of the love stuff, that kind of whatever.
Yeah. So, Vicky just got the job in Northallerton.
Mm-hmm.
At our previous church,
okay.
Doing
School's work.
Doing school's work. And I was just looking for a fresh expression of church, for a different expression of church. The ministers of the church that I was previous to that were moving on. And I just sensed that I needed to go somewhere else and get a fresh sense of where God was. And I went down to that church, and at that time, Vicky was looking for someone to lead worship for an event you were doing.
Yeah.
And she said, would I like to lead worship at this event that she was doing? So I said, yep, I'd love to do that. And then we kind of fell in love over a bacon sandwich.
That's just beautiful moment there. I mean, that is, I don't know about everybody else. That's just got me already. I'm feeling emotional at this point. We fell in love over a bacon sandwich. That actually, I could see a whole range of T-shirts coming out just because of that. That's a line. I love that. Okay, where was this bacon sandwich and what was happening?
Well, you were doing. I think you had a bit of a band, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
And you were doing a 24-hour worship event. And I kind of ended up going along and helping someone who was making some food, and we ended up chatting just as we were sat eating. So yeah.
Over this magical bacon sandwich. Well, actually, Sue here, who's another wonderful person who's a member of Embrace Church, you can see, she remembers yourself there, Barry. Obviously, she also mentioned, I'm just looking at my other monitor as well, Mark McKnight. I actually know Mark. I've known him for a long time as well. I haven't seen him for a while, I must admit. Through organising, a festival Harvest that used to happen in the Northeast that we're involved with. So, so that's great. So that magical bacon sandwich, and you clearly, Vicky, invited Barry because of his worship talents and things like that, not because you thought he was a bit of talent. Clearly.
Yeah.
All right. Whatever.
Say no more.
And that was what, 2001?
Right.
Yeah, September 2001. So there's many people who remember September 2001 for the Twin Towers attack. But actually, that was the month that we got together, wasn't it?
Wow.
But Vicky, when we first went out, we went to see, was it called the first night or the last night or the Knight's Tale or something?
Knight's Tale.
We went to see some movie anyway, and on the way back, I picked Vicky up because she couldn't drive at that time, so I picked her up in my little green Renault. Was it the Renault Clio I had at that time? Little green Renault Clio.
Oh, nice, nice move. Bacon sandwiches and Renault Clios. This is love. This is amazing. We're loving this.
I took her up to Teesside Park, thinking, this is a bit of a date. This is good. And on the way up, she went, do you know, I'm really glad that you're going to be my friend, because my friends have all moved on, and I'm really glad that you're going to be my friend. And I'm like, friend? Oh. What's she trying to tell me here? But that was just a bit of misdirection, or a bit playing it cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You don't want to seem too keen.
Yeah.
Love it.
No.
So, obviously, Barry, you've mentioned, you've been in band and a musician and things like that. And, I've seen you, as part of the One Voice Darlington, kind of particularly in the lockdown, kind of when we had the drive-in church and things like that, obviously you're leading worship. So that's clearly a big part of your life then, like you say, you've one of these multi-instrumentalist talented people. So how did you get into that then? Did you say that you kind of, it was almost in your family and in your blood almost from that point of view?
Well, no, not really. Neither of my parents play a musical instrument, but apparently my granddad, who I never met, apparently was a concert pianist, but I never met him.
Right.
But apparently that's maybe where it comes from. So from the age of 7, I was sent off to organ lessons. It was first.
Wow.
I don't really know why it was organ lessons, but it was. And then from there, picked up the violin when I was 10. And then started playing the keyboard, and then started playing the piano itself. And then from there, picked up the guitar, picked up the bass, and played a bit of drums. Tried the saxophone a bit.
You weren't too bad.
Yeah, for a little while. And so did various musical instruments. And taught them all in school. That's what I was doing when I met Vicky. I was teaching music
music teacher
in around.
Did the law degree and became a music teacher. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I did that in lots of different schools in and around Darlington, peripatetic music teacher.
Yeah.
First of all, working for a company, and then I set my own business up doing that in and around Darlington for 3 or 4 years. And then from then, when I was doing that, the church I was attending where Vicky was working started to ask me, would I give up a day a week and start doing the kids' work for them free of charge first of all, without being paid. So I gave up a day's salary to go and work for the church for free, volunteer for a day a week.
That's good of you.
And then after a year, well, I've just felt like God's call. If you've got calls, you don't say no, do you? Well,
no, that's right.
You try not to. You try not to. After doing that for a year, then they said, okay, would you come and work 3 days a week for us, doing some of the worship as well as the kids' work? So again, gave up a bit more of my my salary doing that, but then I was paid to do that 3 days a week.
Wow.
And then after a year of doing that, they said to me, we believe you're called into full-time ministry. Would you come and work with us full-time doing kids' work and doing worship? And we both that, and you were already, I think, youth pastor maybe at that time. And we said, yeah, we'll gladly do that, but we want some training. So we then did master's degrees in theology at the same time as working full-time for the church, at the same time as having our first child. So
pretty busy then. Yeah, pretty busy. Yeah, a lot going on. Yeah. Was this was it? I couldn't quite pick it up. Was this the church in Northallerton, or were you in Darlington at this point?
No, in Northallerton.
Northallerton.
That's where he was. Yeah.
What about Vicky? What about you? Are you musical in any way? Is this? We just wondering if we were going to get a rendition of something, like your little duet there, Sonny and Cher, or something like that. No.
Generally banned from the choir or going anywhere near the platform when any music's being played or sung or
Yeah.
It's not that she can't sing, Dave. It's just she's got a very distinctive voice.
Yeah, I understand. I get you. I have.
You're gifted in lots and lots of ways, though.
Yeah, be careful, Barry. Be careful. Obviously, this has been recorded and is going out live, and no doubt will be, in the archives to be pulling out at certain points, just to remind you when anything that's required, like a new pair of shoes or bag or whatever. Anyway, I'm not making too many stereotypical kind of judgments there at all. So, worship leading is fantastic. I'm so thankful to God that I get the similar, to do the similar kind of thing, and it's such a great gift and a powerful, time when we can come together and just make a joyful noise, and say that even, and it's amazing, and it's such, you talked about the 24-hour kind of worship side of things. I don't know whether you've ever heard of the, Burn 24/7 kind of movement of worship and David's tent and things like that. But, again, we were trying, it has been in the past, Burn 24/7 in the Teesside area, but again, we're looking to kind of re-establish that then. So it'd be good to have a conversation at some point and see how we can support one another and pull something together maybe, because I think Darlington Baptist Church potentially would be a brilliant place to do something like that anyway. So we can maybe talk about some organisational stuff some other time. There we go. So I just wanted to jump in it publicly and say that. So you've got to agree and have no choice in the matter. There we go, because I can bring that recording back to you then at that point as well. So you did your theology master degrees and things like that, and what a great journey. Obviously giving up, like you say, giving up some of your own time, and then that was by the sounds of it, very quickly saying, well, God was honouring that, your commitment and sacrifice, and then come and do some more days, and eventually being full time. Fantastic. When did Darlington Baptist Church happen in that story? Then when did that role come about? Barry's looking at you, Vicky, so it looks like you're answering this one.
We were serving. We did 7 years serving a church in the southeast of England, down near Wickham, and we had the most amazing time. Really blessed, lovely church. We were very happy. We had our second son down there. The children were very happy in school. Like, our lives were very, very happy. And we'd come back in the summer to visit Barry's mum and dad. I think we'd come back to see them. And as we were driving past Darlington Baptist Church, as we drove past the building, I felt God say to me, you need to come here and take that church. Wow. And the immediate response was, no, thank you very much. We're happy, like our lives are happy, we're settled. I don't want to move. I don't want to move to Darlington. I'm happy. So anyway, I held on to it for a couple of weeks because I thought if I mentioned to Barry that that's a possibility, he might be very excited because of the football club. So I didn't say anything.
I get you.
God kept prodding me and prodding me and prodding me. So eventually I said, Barry, look, I think God's maybe calling us. Maybe it's time to move. God's calling us to come and take this church. So we got in touch with the minister there who we knew. who then said to us, look, I'm looking to retire. That would be perfect. Could we have further conversation? And then we just took it over the course of a year, just slowly prayed about it, talked with the church about it, and eventually just kind of came to the conclusion that that was, the right thing. I think when we went to interview at the church, we said to them on our interview, we said, look, if you don't want to change and you don't want to reach the community for Jesus, don't call us. We're the wrong people for you. So we really laid it out for them, and they called us anyway. So I think we then felt that really was the right thing.
Yeah. And it wasn't without its moments of difficulty, because when we were down south, we had two friends became Christians when we were down there, and became our best friends, and we just loved them and spent loads of time with them. And leaving that community was a wrench for us, because we loved it down there. But as I said earlier, when God calls, you don't say no. So there was one moment I remember in the January when we thought we were going to be called, when we felt that this seemed as though everything was pointing towards being called, when we just had a meltdown. And we had to phone our friend Malcolm, and we just said, Malcolm, can you come round? We sense God is calling us, but we just don't know if it's the right thing. We need some confirmation. So he came racing round, didn't he, and spent some time with us and prayed with us and said, you're being called, you need to go. We went and we were obedient.
Yeah, I mean, that's coming across obviously in a number of points from your story about, I mean, you've mentioned, when God calls, you've got to be obedient, you've got to go, kind of stuff. But you've got that certainty. It seems from friends coming around and praying for you and so on. Again, that God is calling you into these places, and again, being hungry to do to be where God's calling you. So that's coming across really, really strongly. And Vicky, it's pretty amazing to kind of be driving past a church and say, right, bang, there's a word from God, right, you need to take this church. It's almost like they weren't advertising or anything, or maybe on a poster did you say, it was just literally there's a Holy Spirit God moment kind of stuff grabbing you and saying, right, and very wisely sat on it for a while, and to make sure that actually is that the right thing. So that's amazing. And so tell us a bit about Darlington Baptist Church then. We've already heard about the kind of Monday night football ministry. I'm going to call it ministry. That again is fantastic, reaching out to the community. And I love the fact that you said that as well. That if you don't want to change and you don't want to reach your community, then we're not your people. I love that honesty and so on. And clearly, that's what your heart is about and you're passionate about. And so how is that happening? And what's we've got the football, but what else is happening in the life of Darlington Baptist Church then?
So when we were still living in the southeast, we used to go and serve in Battelle. You've heard of Battelle, a Christian drug and alcohol rehab centre,
right? Yeah.
So we used to go across and serve. There was one close to where we lived, and we used to go across and regularly serve there. And we met this couple there who were house leaders, and really sort of walked with them, prayed with them. And when we came to leave, Battelle were just closing the house down in Watford and moving the whole house to Manchester. Right. And so we met with them, we chatted with them, we said, God's calling us away, we're going to go up to the northeast. And as we sat with them, we said, actually, we just get a sense that maybe God's calling you to come and join us in that work. We don't know what that's going to look like. We don't know what that's going to, be, but somehow God's calling you to do that. And anyway, when we came to Darlington, they have the basement, which is a soup kitchen and a food bank that had been run for many, many years.
Right.
And about a year after we got there, the couple who'd been leading it voluntarily for years decided to move to Norfolk.
Right.
At which point we were sort of stuck as a church, like no one else wanted to take it on. So we kind of said to the church, look, we've got two choices here. We either close the thing down because no one wants to lead it, or we bring in this couple that we know, and they come and serve with us, at which point they were then voted in. So we had this couple who's got the most amazing stories. He was homeless, lived in a dustbin, drug addict. She was an alcoholic.
Right, yeah.
Got together in the hotel, got saved, lives changed, and they then now lead the work that we do. We've just employed them for 2 years.
Fantastic.
And they lead the work in the basement, and they're seeing just the most amazing things, aren't they?
Yeah, because the bit of history about Darlington Baptist Church is it's not a long-standing church. It's actually been two churches. So we have two buildings. We have the Grange Road site, which is near Sainsbury's in Darlington, if you know Darlington at all, and we have a site on Corporation Road as well. So those were two separate churches until 2017, and they're both struggling a fair bit. I think they would willingly say that themselves, and so they decided to merge, to amalgamate, to become one church, and they did in 2017 under our predecessor. In 2017, they became one church, and we're only meeting really primarily in the Grange Road site on a Sunday morning, and saw some growth in that period of time, and changed quite a lot of what they were doing on a Sunday morning, and saw some growth. But the Corporation Road building was pretty much mothballed, wasn't it, to a large degree.
Right.
So when we came, the church grew a little bit more on a Sunday morning, and just before COVID, we were thinking, how on earth are we going to fit everybody in? Because we've got this building here that's getting full. And we really would love to get something going over Corporation Road, but how are we going to do that? Then COVID happened. And when we reopened after COVID, we said we're going to have to social distance. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to open both buildings. We're going to have to ask some of you to come on a Sunday night and some to come on a Sunday morning. And that is how we have now got two congregations, essentially.
Wow. Brilliant.
One on Sunday morning at Grange Road and one on Sunday evening at Corporation Road. And we do the same thing pretty much at both services, but they are distinct congregations, but one church, as well as doing some stuff online. And over at Corporation Road, we want to talk about the other stuff that we've got going over there since then.
Yeah, because so at the same time that we were looking for someone to lead the work in the basement, the soup kitchen and the food bank, Tony Cottrell, who runs Roots in the town, which is Christian drug and rehab centre, was looking for people to come and work with him.
Right.
So we had a conversation with Tony that was like just a God-given moment, in which we said, well, actually, we've got these friends that have been through all of that themselves, that have been working in a drug rehab centre. We're going to employ them part-time. You don't fancy employing them part-time, do you? And so he's then come and set up in Corporation Road Roots, and employs Dawn and Pete, which crosses over between the two ministries. So 3 days a week now that's open as a drug and rehab centre, and they do rehab in the community.
Yeah.
And we've seen a life spring forth in that community, where before there wasn't much happening. We are seeing a real springing forth of life in that community, which is amazing. Sunday nights, you never know who's going to be there, and it's an amazing, isn't it? We love going on a Sunday. We love Sunday mornings, but don't get us wrong. But Sunday evening is you just don't know who's going to be there. And just in the last few weeks, we've seen people come to Christ, haven't we? And a number of people come to Christ who are fresh, to faith, who come through that kind of addiction background. So yeah, we love what God's doing at Corporation Road.
Amazing. It sounds great. It sounds fantastic. Amen. Obviously, it's quite clear. Obviously, as those God moments, and God's just got plans and purposes. And just it's amazing how He brings it all together, doesn't He? It just kind of, chance meetings or getting to know something, and then the jigsaw kind of pieces fit together, don't they? In His timing, and it's amazing how He does that. Like you say, we just get to see part of the picture, but God just moving in lots of fantastic ways. It's brilliant. So I'm just conscious of the amount of messages that are coming on, in terms of the comments and things. Are just obviously a lot of the people, I can read them on my other monitor over here, just obviously making connections as well. I don't know if you can see them, but just like, oh, do you know that? Oh yeah, I know that. Yeah, and it's great because it's brilliant. I love that. It's brilliant. Okay, so what about what about One Voice Darlington? How did that kind of come about? Obviously you're taking a kind of active lead role on that, and again, Alan in particular, Alan Fraser, senior pastor of Embrace Church, just has been to a few meetings just recently and always talks amazingly about them. And I'm just sad that I can't get there because the times that we meet just clashes with some family commitments. So so it's not always possible. But for me to get there, but it's amazing. I'm always kind of like, oh, I wish I was there. It's brilliant, and it's exciting to hear. So how did One Voice Darlington kind of come about then? From that point of view.
Well, all of this has just been organic. So none of this has been thought through. None of it's just about praying together. So what happened was when I moved back to Darlington, we'd already had some connections with some of the churches because we were half an hour away in our previous church. So we had some connections with some of the people here. We'd worked with quite a few of the ministers, and we were asked to put on a 24/7 prayer in our church.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, of course we can put on a 24/7 prayer in the church, but why? Not why pray, but what is the strategy behind it? What's the thought process behind it?
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with 24/7 prayer. We love praying. We believe in it, but what strategy behind it could it be any bigger than 2 or 3 people praying for an hour for the 24 hours?
Yeah.
Is there anything more behind it? So we got a group of people together, church leaders together, and said, what is God going to do? What does God want to do? And so we just began to pray together. And what we were going to do was we were going to hire the Dolphin Centre, Pentecost 2020, and we were going to just pray together and see what God wanted to do. COVID happened, and we decided that what we do would we do that online instead. So we had an online expression of prayer for, I think it was half an hour, I think it was, on Pentecost Sunday in 2020. And we asked all different church leaders just to lead 5 minutes of the prayer. And at the same time, we got the church leaders to record a little bit of the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've seen that, but we've got all the different church leaders saying a line of the Lord's Prayer. And we showed that in our church for a good 2 or 3 months, I think. Rather than saying the Lord's Prayer, we showed it to get a sense of all of the churches.
Yeah.
Then we, after Pentecost, we're in the midst of lockdown, and we felt God say to us to put on a drive-in church, like a ridiculous idea. But we talked about it, haven't we? And then one of our elders sent us an email saying, have you thought about putting on a drive-in church? And we're like, okay, well, maybe this isn't just too much cheese, but maybe this is a God idea. You want to take it?
Yes, so we initially contacted the council to say, could we use a car park? And they just came back and said no.
Great.
So we're kind of like, oh, well, that's the end of that then. And then they got back to us and said, actually, have you thought about the Northern Echo Arena? So we got in touch with the Northern Echo Arena. We heard nothing from them at all for ages, did we? So we kind of thought, again, that's the end of that then.
Yeah.
After about 5 weeks, we got an email from the girl who'd been on furlough, and she said, I think this is a brilliant idea. We need to do it. Yes, you can use our car park. So we then had 2 weeks, I think, didn't we, to put together and organise the drive-in church. So initially, we went and looked around the car park, and we chose 40 spaces that we thought would be perfect and fit perfectly for what we wanted. Like, this section will be fine, 40 spaces. And then we think we made a little video, didn't we, and put it online, and started getting click after click, watch after watch after watch. And we kind of thought, oh, maybe 40 spaces isn't going to be enough for this. And then as we went on the journey, just in those 2 weeks, really, I think we very early on felt God say, actually, this isn't just for you. It's not just for Darlington Baptist Church. You need to get all the other churches involved. So we've contacted those that had been really strategic in the Pentecost prayer and said to them, look, we're going to do this. We don't have to do it as Darlington Baptist Church. We could do it as One Voice Darlington. Do you want to come in with us and do it? And they were all hugely positive about it. So we kind of ran with that. And within 2 weeks, we'd been offered a trailer, hadn't we, for free. From a guy who's not even a Christian. He'd be a brilliant guy, offered us his trailer for free to deliver it each week and everything. We had a sound system, because initially we were just going to take our little sound system from church. Then we kind of worked out, actually, this isn't going to work.
That might struggle in that size car park. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So we had a Christian guy who's a professional sound guy, came, organised all the sound for us. We put together a band then from all the different churches, because it wasn't just Darlington Baptist Church.
Yeah.
And I think within 2 weeks then we'd organised the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then we had over 4 weeks. It was
190 cars
a week.
Yeah.
Come through. So that was just God's thing, just God's timing,
totally
at the right time. I know Alan from Embrace and you guys were involved in that as well, with us. And just what that did for relationships between the church leaders, I think was really significant, wasn't it? Because we just worked together for 4 weeks.
Because there's a real hunger, wasn't there, at that time? It all kind of molds into one, doesn't it? But at that time, there's a real hunger because we hadn't met together for, I think, 3 months, 4 months. And there's a real hunger to, and so remember seeing one of the leaders who was at King's Church at the time holding a welcome back banner, and like people coming in their horns, and it was really good because whenever somebody did the prayers and said amen, everybody beat their horn, beep, rather than saying amen. It was just a different way of doing church, and we got known in the community that there's a Christian thing happening on a Sunday morning. While we could over at the arena, and so from then we continued to pray together every couple of weeks with those church leaders when we could in person and when we couldn't via Zoom. Just seeking the peace and prosperity of the town to which we're called, as it says in Jeremiah 29 verse 4, I think it is. Seek the peace and prosperity of the city that you're called to. So that's basically what we've been doing, seeking the peace and prosperity of Darlington, praying for the town, praying for the churches, praying for anything that we can. And then we saw the treasury relocate to Darlington. We're like, oh, is that a coincidence? No, it's God at work bringing new people, bringing finance into this area that there wasn't before. We do believe that God has been answering our prayers in that. And then it came to Christmas, didn't it? In 2020. And I think some churches were still reluctant to be fully open. So again, we thought, okay, what can we do as that body of people at One Voice Darlington? And we weren't able to hire the arena because they were doing COVID vaccinations or flu vaccinations, one of them, I think. And so Teesside Airport was available, and so we did carols driving carols, didn't we? At Teesside Airport in Christmas 2020, and over 1,000 people came to that event over two. And it's really we try and take the name of churches out of it. So whenever we introduce ourselves, we're a local church leader, because people don't need to know which church we're from. They just need to know we're a local church leader. When people come to do their prayers, they're a local church leader. Because for far too long, there's been competition within churches for far too long. And if every church in Darlington was filled, there'd still be 95% of Darlington that weren't saved. So we're very much of the mindset of there's one church, as you've already said, Dave. There's one church in Darlington. And there's one God who we all serve. So let's just work together as best we can.
So that's amazing. Obviously, and thank you. Thank you for, being instrumental in all of that. Obviously just sensing that God's leading and pulling that together. And it's amazing, as always, how God provides that. To put something on at the arena in 2 weeks was ridiculous, isn't it? And it's amazing that God just again pulls things together. And since then, obviously it's been moving forward and again, such special times together as the church in a time when obviously there was such a lot of difficulties and, like you say, restrictions, and it was just desperate for people to see one another, obviously, and of course just stewarding that well, and coming along and in the car, and it was again very well organised, felt very safe and everything. It was just a great time, brilliant. So, what about One Voice Darlington now that, what's kind of happening now? Obviously, you said about, meeting regularly with church leaders and things like that. Is there anything, I don't know, maybe brewing? I don't know, not like any spoilers, but what's currently happening?
So we did a prayer night, didn't we, at the arena again, just a little while ago, which was, again, really well attended, brilliant evening. And I think that the leaders are continuing to just regularly meet together. And I think what we're trying not to do is be program driven, but we're really trying to be spirit led. So rather than just trying to think, well, what can we put on next? We're actually just coming together, praying, seeking God, and then just moving as we feel kind of God leads, really. We just did a leaders lunch, didn't we, at King's Church, hosted for us. And that was Phil and Sally Hillsden did a lot of the organisation for that for us. But so we've just done leaders lunch, an opportunity for leaders to come together, to chat together, to pray together, to get to know one another more. And I think we're just looking at the possibility again of something else.
Yeah, looking at the possibility of just getting everybody together to worship together. It's a bit of a celebration, really. Now COVID restrictions are at the moment anyway, the COVID restrictions have gone,
Yeah.
Then I think what we want to do, I think we our last prayer meeting only a few weeks ago, we were wondering whether God was leading us just to have a time of celebration, to get everyone together, to celebrate God's goodness over these last couple of years, and that He's held us and that He's kept us, and that we're here to celebrate His name. So we're considering that. We probably will do something. We haven't got a date or a venue yet. But maybe towards the end of April or beginning of May, we will do something. But as Vicky said, we don't want to be program driven. We don't want to be putting things on for putting things on sake. There's enough churches who are doing things.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that if we're going to do something, it's because God's told us to do it, not because we have a space in our diary.
Totally. So, obviously you've talked about so much, which has been great, and as always, I'm looking at the time here, and it's just flew past. We've got it, just before 9 now, and I just wanted to make sure that if I can just kind of go to my scene over here, make sure I put the right one on. I just want to kind of put your contact details on here. So, again, we've got your full screen now, and obviously the details are on there, obviously for your, for Darlington Baptist Church, but it's very easy as well if you do a search for One Voice Darlington to kind of follow the socials there to keep yourself informed. So, but if we're thinking Darlington Baptist Church, obviously you talked about so many great areas that you're serving the community in. You've got the two kind of congregations, although it's one church. It's meeting in a couple of different places and stuff, and which is amazing. Just, how can people support you as Darlington Baptist Church? Obviously, we've got the contact details there, but what can we do? Because, again, we've got people who have maybe viewing live, who maybe, catch up another time, even just stumble across this maybe on YouTube or Facebook and think, and drop in and they might not do the church thing at all. But, how can they, obviously support and get involved and maybe have a chat with you or whatever?
Well, I guess the main way is just to pray for us. We currently work 2 days a week each for the church. Well, 3 days 3 days including the Sunday, but we work 2 days a week in the week for the church, kind of a job share kind of arrangement. And there's a lot to organise, a lot to do in that 2 days. Normally a Wednesday and a Thursday, we're in the church office doing various things. So I think that's a big challenge for us to know what our priorities are, to know where to place our energies, our times, and our efforts. And we do believe that people have spoken over us that there is a kind of strategic role for us in Darlington. And that sounds a bit, but I don't mean it to sound anything other than that's what people have spoken over us. So I think there is some prayer needed around what that might look like. Prayer for protection, prayer for the God will just do His thing, really. I think that's what I would say.
Yeah.
What are you going to say?
No, just the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look at that unity right there. That's amazing. There we go. It must be that amazing magical bacon sandwiches still having its effect after all these years and things like that. Yeah, absolutely. So that's great. Like you say, I mean, that's an interesting one, isn't it? Job share kind of stuff. I know you're very clear on that, and I've always got that impression when you've said that, and I love that you say that you're a local church leader. Like you say, we don't need to know the rest in that sense, and I love that. It's great, and like you say, that really represents and kind of reflects the unity and like you say, one church and all those kind of things. So, if you're both working part time, what do you do with the rest of your time then? Is that playing football? Breaking down fences, a Darlow fan? Whatever it may be, maybe trying to get a bit of performing arts in there, or some law aspects, or whatever it may be. What do you do for the rest of your time then? Do you just sit around doing church leadery things?
Just sit around doing that. Really. No, we both enjoy going to the gym. So we both go to the gym. Vicky more than I do. Vicky goes more than I do. Although we employ a couple of days a week, we end up working more than that. But we do enjoy fitness, don't we?
You do football. I do ballet. I do ballet class.
Yeah.
We've got 2 boys that keep us super busy.
Sure.
Anyway.
Sure.
We're like taxi service, driving them to their various clubs and activities.
Yeah.
So we've seen friends.
Yeah.
But we don't really just work 3 days for the church.
Right, yeah, it never works out like that, does it? You know, like I say, even, you know, I'm a teacher, so you know, I'm a primary teacher, so I work part time in a school. I do 3 days a week, but it's a full time role in 3 days. You know, all of that. So you know, certainly in the church aspect, you know, like you say, it's so much more, and that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, I suppose, I don't know, you've got to be pretty disciplined with your time to get some downtime, to, you know, to be kind on yourself, you know, and like you say, you need your Sabbath moments kind of things to do that as well, don't you? I'm sure. And I'm sure with the boys, and like you say, everybody can relate to being taxis, parental taxis, to all over the place. I can certainly relate to that as well, definitely. Yeah. Listen, it's been great chatting with you, and thank you so much for like you say, giving up your time tonight, and we really appreciate it. And you know, even though I'm looking over at my other monitor again, lots of comments. It's been great to see people taking this opportunity, hopefully listening, but multitasking as well, to kind of connect with one another. And it's great to see that kind of unfurling, you know, here and so on, which is lovely. And so, you know, thank you for I want to say thank you for all that you do in Darlington, you know, and you know, to develop kingdom agenda, you know, it's all about kingdom, you know, and like you say, and you know, it's amazing to hear your stories. It's amazing to hear your humility. You know, again, I want to encourage everybody who's watching this that we will continue to kind of pray for you both, obviously for as church leaders as well, but, you know, maybe a strategic role, you know, something that's been spoken over you. Again, praying you for that one. You know, and it's great. Like you say, we pray that Darlington will behave themselves when they play football at away grounds. You know, bless them. And you know, obviously ballet. I'm impressed with that, Vicky. I'm impressed with the ballet. And you know, what kind of immediately I started thinking there was, I'd love to actually see what Barry's like on a football pitch. Is he like a Rude Hullet, who's like almost just the grace and finesse of a ballet dancer going across a pitch? Yeah, I mean, you've got to be a pretty good player to have those coloured boots. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. There we go. Yeah. Bobby Davis.
Well, all I'll say is when we played 11-a-side in the team in the South, we played 24 games and scored 45 goals. So that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I like that. He's got the confidence there, and it's coming out now, isn't it? There we go. This is when we'll start talking about. We had trials for everybody. I had trials when I was younger. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, obviously, clearly, you scored a lot of goals, but what you haven't told us about the standard of opposition and the standard of play. But we won't get into all of that at this point. And you know, I mean, I heard the blind school would have had a pretty good team at that point. So, you know, anyway,
actually.
There we go. There we go. Listen, thank you very much. You know, it's been great. I really enjoyed it. And if you just want to kind of hang on, I'm just going to end up things, you know, for now. And if you want to hang on, we can have a quick chat afterwards and whatever like that. But have you enjoyed it? Has it been okay?
Great, thanks, Dave.
I'm pleased we got to the hour, because when we set off like a house on fire, you know, I thought we were going to do 20 minutes at the most. I was like, wow, where we going? But no, obviously, as always, the time went, which is great. All right. So let me just kind of change scene and back to here again. Look, listen, it's been great to kind of have another episode, and thank you, Barry and Vicky, for doing that so much. I'm going to just kind of change the scene again. Oh, this is so clunky, not without my little switcher. I'm going to have that sorted for next week, hopefully. But you know, thank you for tuning in tonight. Thank you as always. You know, and let me say that. Set your reminders for Wednesday night at 8:00, because I've got guests lined up, and I'm so thankful to God for this, you know, because honestly, you know, I've got guests lined up all the way through to the end of July, and we're going into August. And to be honest, you know, obviously it hasn't been, thank God for this, you know, too much of a chew to try and get those guests in. The people are just wanting to come on and just talk about Jesus. It's amazing. So, you know, obviously, set your reminders, tune in at 8:00 on a Wednesday. Try and do it live if you can, because we always like to have, you know, some interaction on there, you know, hear your comments and answer your questions and things. But if you can catch up, you know, afterwards, that's fine as well. But please help us out. Like I say, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on all usual socials and things like that. And tune in next week. So have a good week. Bless you. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to try and find the last bit here, and I'm just going across my other computer, like I say, and hopefully we'll see you next week. All right, take care. Thank you.